Chapter 1: The Arrival.
It was a night like any other in Steve Rogers' rustic studio, tucked away in the quiet corner of Cincinnati, Ohio. As he ran his fingers through his slicked-back silver hair, the soothing hum of late-night chatter filled the radio waves. Steve was a second-generation trucking radio show host, his smooth baritone voice a comforting presence for the weary drivers navigating the vast American landscape. His show, Midnight Run, was a beacon of familiarity in an otherwise lonely profession. Steve's visitor that night was David Carter, a seasoned truck driver with years of stories etched into his weathered face. David's trusted companion, a black and rust miniature pinscher named Apollo, was with him, eyes glittering with a quiet intelligence. Though the dog's tail had been docked, it did nothing to reduce his lively spirit. "Man, this old thing has seen better days," David laughed as he pried open the back of Steve's ancient PC. It coughed up a cloud of dust, causing Apollo to sneeze. "You should have let me do this years ago, Steve." "You know I'm not one for change, David," Steve replied, taking a swig of his ever-present black coffee. While David and Steve were engrossed in the innards of the computer, they realized they were missing crucial parts. David, being the handyman he was, decided to drive out to the nearest electronics store. Steve, busy with his show, opted to stay behind. "I won't be long, Steve. Apollo will keep you company," David assured him, patting the dog's smooth head before stepping out into the cool night air. Unbeknownst to them, danger lurked in the shadows. As David's truck pulled into the illuminated parking lot of the electronics store, a striking blonde woman materialized from the darkness. Like a predator stalking her prey, she skillfully climbed up onto the side of the truck, her captivating blue eyes locking onto David's. Back at the studio, hours ticked by, and David's absence became increasingly worrying. Steve tried to reach him, but each call went unanswered. Apollo, too, was growing anxious, his small body tense, his keen ears pricked. "Something isn't right, Apollo," Steve muttered, the joyous hum of Midnight Run now a distant echo. Steve and Apollo were oblivious to the horrifying truth: David had become the first captive of the notorious Lot Lizard Gang, a secret band of women who hypnotized unsuspecting truck drivers with their alluring charm. The night had just started, and the world was yet to see the chaos that was about to unfold.
Chapter 2: Ensnared.
While Steve and Apollo were grappling with David's eerie disappearance, the enigmatic blonde woman was leading him to a place he could have never imagined. The members of the Lot Lizard Gang weren't ordinary women, they were alien entities hailing from Venus, captivating in their beauty and lethal in their intentions. Upon arrival on Earth, these Venusian spirits assumed the forms of exceptionally attractive women. They built a sprawling compound disguised as a picturesque suburban neighborhood, complete with manicured lawns, white picket fences, and sprawling mansions. Each woman possessed a house of her own, designed to trap and enslave unsuspecting truck drivers. David, having fallen victim to the seductive queen of the Lot Lizard Gang, found himself navigating this surreal landscape. His normally strong and decisive demeanor had withered away under the bewitching control of the Venusian queen. David was compelled to do her bidding, taking out the trash, vacuuming the floors, and mowing the lawns, reduced to a mindless drone. Every command she issued was met with his monotonous reply, "Yes, dear." As David mechanically completed his tasks, a flicker of memory sparked in his mind. He remembered Apollo's intelligent eyes, Steve's hearty laughter, the shared camaraderie, but his thoughts were abruptly snuffed out. He was in the Queen's realm now, and his existence was devoted to serving her whims. Back at the radio station, Steve's night shift ended on a gloomy note. His usual sign-off was replaced with a plea for help. "This is Steve Rogers of Midnight Run reaching out to anyone who might have seen our friend David. He's missing, and any information would be a godsend. As the early rays of dawn pierced the dark sky, Apollo nestled close to Steve, his eyes mirroring the human's worry. Unbeknownst to them, they had just embarked on a journey far more extraordinary than any midnight trucking tale ever broadcast on the radio waves.
Chapter 3: The Call.
As the night settled in, and Steve began his overnight radio show, Apollo sat beside him, his keen eyes focused on the mic. Together, they were determined to find their friend. Steve's resonant voice filled the radio waves. "This is Steve Rogers, host of Midnight Run. We're putting out an APB for our friend David Carter. Keep your eyes open, folks." The response was immediate and widespread. Truckers from across the country began chiming in, providing their support, and promising to keep an eye out for David. The sense of camaraderie was palpable. In the face of adversity, the trucking community was a united front. The second call of the night was from a driver known as Pappy. He was calling from a bustling truck stop, a curious note of excitement in his voice. "There's a party over here, Steve. They've got the Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders or something." But no sign of David. Steve felt a pang of confusion. A truck stop was hardly a place for cheerleaders. But before he could probe further, Pappy's voice faltered. There was a noticeable shift in his tone. Apollo, whose ears had been perked up, began to growl menacingly, a deep, rumbling sound that was unusual for the little dog. As a seductive female voice seeped into the call, Pappy's voice waned. "I have to go, Steve," he mumbled, the last words chilling Steve to the bone. "Yes, dear." The line went dead. Steve sat in stunned silence, his mind reeling. This was an ordinary man choosing to hang up on a nationwide call for help, just to talk to a woman. But Apollo's agitation signaled a deeper menace. Trusting the dog's instincts, Steve's heart sank. Could it be another work of the Lot Lizard gang? As the pieces fell into place, Steve's resolve hardened. He had to stop this from happening to anyone else. They needed to crack the code of the enchanting voices, and soon. Little did they know, they were not just up against a gang, but against cosmic entities with powers beyond their understanding.
Chapter 4: Unsettling Discoveries.
While Steve was navigating through the thickening plot back at the studio, events were unfolding simultaneously at the Lot Lizard gang's suburban compound. David, still entranced, was led out of the house to witness a peculiar sight. A new truck had pulled up, its driver climbing down with a dazed look on his face. Amid his subservient haze, David caught a familiar glimpse of the newcomer. Was it Pappy? The usually lively chatterbox seemed as robotic as David felt. He yearned to reach out, to verify if it was truly his fellow driver, but the invisible chains of enchantment held him back. The Queen returned just then, her beauty outshining the Venusian evening light. Her appearance jolted David back into obedience. He followed her dutifully back into her house, his questions about Pappy temporarily forgotten. The Queen settled onto her lavish chaise lounge, extending her arm towards David. "Feed me grapes, dear," she commanded, her voice as intoxicating as a siren's song. "Yes, dear," David responded mechanically, his hands automatically moving to fulfill her wish. She leaned back, closing her eyes as David began his task, her voice sounding again with another order. "And a massage, too, dear." "Yes, dear," he echoed, his hands moving to knead her tense shoulders. While his body performed the tasks, his mind was elsewhere. The arrival of Pappy, if it indeed was him, signified that the Lot Lizard gang was expanding their reach. As David reluctantly succumbed to the Queen's whims, he couldn't help but worry about the fate of his fellow truckers.
Chapter 5: The Pattern Emerges.
The third night descended like a heavy blanket over the nation, the tense anticipation palpable over the radio waves. Steve's show was now a lifeline connecting the truckers scattered across the miles. The first caller, known by the CB-handled diaper rash, painted a bizarre picture of the truck stop he was parked at. "No cheerleaders tonight, Steve," he chuckled, "but I think they're shooting a movie here. Got these women all dressed up like Viking warriors." Steve's heart tightened as Diaper Rash relayed the unusual scene. The scenario felt uncannily familiar. As the driver continued his story, detailing how one of these Viking warriors had mesmerized a fellow trucker right at the fuel pump, Steve felt Apollo stir beside him. Despite the laughter in Diaper Rash's voice, the situation wasn't amusing anymore. Diaper Rash's jocular remark about falling for such a woman himself rang ominously in the studio. As if on cue, Apollo started growling at the speaker again. "Diaper Rash," Steve cautioned, his voice grave. "Something isn't right." "Apollo is." Before he could finish his warning, there was a sudden knock audible over the call. An enchanting female voice filled the air, promising eternal bliss. Steve felt a chill crawl up his spine as Diaper Rash's robust laughter faded, replaced by the mind-numbingly familiar response, "Yes, dear." With dread mounting in his heart, Steve dialed the authorities. Despite his urgent pleas, their response was discouraging. According to the security footage, the men were leaving voluntarily with the women. No coercion was evident, thus, no intervention was possible. Steve was left in stunned silence. These weren't mere coincidences anymore. The disappearances, the stunning women, and Apollo's reaction, they were all linked. The question was, how were these Venusian women entrancing the drivers, and how could they be stopped? The clues were there, but the puzzle seemed more complex than ever.
Chapter 6: The Venusian Intent.
A week had passed since David's disappearance, and nearly 30 truck drivers had gone missing in quick succession. From the window of the Queen's lair, David watched the eerie procession of entranced men arriving every day. The sight was disheartening, a chilling testament to the Venusian women's powerful hold. Despite living with a woman of incredible beauty, David's situation was nothing short of a torturous confinement. He was left grappling with the terrifying thought of being trapped forever under the spell of these Venusian seductresses. Meanwhile, Steve's show had become a beacon for the worried truckers. On this night, a female truck driver named Karen called in. Unlike the male truckers, Karen's account was different. Her voice did not cause Apollo to growl. Instead, the little dog listened attentively as she recounted witnessing the bizarre scene at a truck stop. Karen described the enchantresses scantily clad and captivating, approaching a chosen driver. They would whisper a few words, touch his ear, and, in a surreal turn of events, place a dog leash around his neck. The men would then follow them like obedient puppies, leaving their rigs and their lives behind. At Karen's description, Apollo cocked his head, seeming to understand the odd comparison. Things took a strange turn when Karen confronted one of the Venusian women. Apollo's growl returned, echoing the tension that permeated Karen's voice. Undeterred, the Venusian woman revealed their chilling agenda to Karen. "We are here to repopulate our planet. Soon, the Earth will mirror our compound, and all men will obey us, responding only with 'Yes, dear.' There is nothing you can do." The haunting words echoed in the studio. The Venusian powers, it seemed, had no effect on the female drivers. A glimmer of hope pierced the grim revelations. If the women were immune to the Venusian charm, they might just be humanity's best hope against the galactic predators.
Chapter 7: Sonic Disruption.
On the evening before one of his broadcasts, Steve and Apollo were tuned into the news. Vice President Kamala Harris was delivering a speech, starting with her distinctive cackling laugh. To Steve's surprise, Apollo's reaction to the laugh mirrored his response to the voices of the lot lizard gang, a low, threatening growl. This observation sparked an idea in Steve's mind. With years of broadcasting experience, Steve was familiar with the nuances of sound, and he couldn't ignore the potential connection he'd just discovered. During his radio show that night, Steve invited Karen back on the line. As she was still in Cincinnati, Ohio, the epicenter of the mysterious disappearances, he asked her to return to the local truck stop. If she witnessed the Venusian women approaching the truck drivers, she was to play Vice President Harris's laugh on loop from her radio. As the night unfolded, Karen indeed spotted a Venusian woman at the truck stop, preparing to enchant another victim. As the woman slipped the familiar dog collar onto the unsuspecting driver's neck, Karen acted. She played the vice president's cackling laugh loudly on her radio. Instantly, the Venusian woman recoiled, covering her ears as if in pain. The trance she had placed on the driver shattered. The trucker looked around, disoriented, and confused. He had no recollection of the transpired events or why he was hearing such an intense and disturbing sound. Steve's hunch had been correct. The vice president's laugh had somehow acted as a sonic disruptor, breaking the hypnotic hold of the Venusian women. An unconventional weapon, but a weapon, nonetheless, had been discovered in their fight against the lot lizard gang. This revelation promised a glimmer of hope, a potential turning point in their desperate struggle.
Chapter 8: A High-Stakes Plan.
Armed with their newfound weapon, Steve and Apollo now faced a daunting challenge, locating the Venusian women's secret suburban compound. Seeming to understand the predicament, Apollo let out a bark and pawed at his GPS dog collar. This gave Steve an idea, but he knew it was a dangerous one. They would need all the help they could get. Turning to his wife, who he affectionately called Princess, Steve outlined his risky plan. He proposed wearing Apollo's GPS tracking collar like a wristwatch, turning himself into bait. He would allow himself to be abducted by the Venusian women at the truck stop, while Apollo and Princess followed discreetly from a safe distance. Their vehicle would be equipped with loudspeakers blaring the cackling laughter of Vice President Kamala Harris, ready to disrupt the Venusians' control at a moment's notice. Despite the danger, Steve knew that the lot of them, the gruff radio show host, his loyal miniature pincher, and his fearless wife, were their only hope. With determination to steal his voice, Steve finalized their plan. They were about to embark on a daring rescue mission to save not only their friend David, but all the truck drivers who'd fallen prey to the lot lizard gang.
Chapter 9: Operation Cackle.
Dressed in his everyday garb, Steve caught a ride to the local truck stop in a fellow trucker's rig. Within minutes, a stunning Venusian woman sauntered up to him, her attire inspired by Wonder Woman. As soon as she spoke, Steve felt himself falling into a hypnotic trance. In their car, Apollo and the princess watched the scene through binoculars. Seeing the beautiful woman touching her husband and leading him off with a dog leash was tough for the princess, but she reined in her jealousy and focused on the task at hand. Following the Venusian woman's car discreetly, they traced its path through winding streets and into the well-hidden Venusian suburbia. The neighborhood was pristine, each lawn meticulously maintained, a testament to the hard work of the enslaved men. Some tended the flower gardens while others pampered their Venusian masters, fanning them and serving them grapes. The sight amused the princess, but she quickly returned her attention to the mission. As Steve's car pulled up to a house in the center of the neighborhood, it was time to act. Cranking the volume to its maximum, the princess and Apollo initiated Operation Cackle, driving through the neighborhood with the speakers blasting Vice President Kamala Harris's laughter. The impact was immediate. The Venusian women collapsed onto the ground, writhing in agony, their ears unable to withstand the shrill laughter. The enslaved men, too, were affected but differently. The painful noise snapped them out of their trance, although the overwhelming sound had them clutching their ears in discomfort. Thankfully, the princess and Apollo were protected by earplugs they had thought to wear, saving them from the debilitating laughter. Once all the Venusian women were incapacitated, and the men free from their trance, the princess switched off the sound. Although the noise was excruciating to human ears, it was lethal to the Venusian lot lizard gang. Now they had a chance to save their friends and end the Venusian reign of terror.
Chapter 10: The Ancient Power.
In the aftermath of the Venusian invasion, scientists descended on the Suburbia compound. The enslaved truck drivers were finally free, but the question remained: how had these Venusian women managed to hypnotize them so completely? The scientific investigation yielded surprising results. Archaeological studies, historical texts, and a deep dive into gender dynamics through the ages revealed a shocking truth. Ancient Earth women once held similar powers to the Venusian invaders. They were able to charm, guide, and influence their men with an incredible potency. However, this power was lost over time, especially during the rise of radical feminism, as women moved away from traditional roles and men became less inclined to fulfill their requests unconditionally. This revelation sent shockwaves through society. Women began to question their roles and their power, and to rethink the paths they had chosen. It became clear that there was a profound strength in simply being a traditional woman, not subservient or oppressed, but respected and appreciated in their uniqueness and difference. The world did not revert to its old ways overnight. However, the knowledge of their ancient power caused a subtle shift in women's perspective, leading to a greater understanding and respect for the feminine power that transcended societal norms and expectations. They learned that true power lay not in dominating or emulating men, but in embracing their inherent femininity and the unique strengths it brought to the world. This was the unexpected legacy of the Venusian lot lizard gang, a renewed appreciation for the power and potential of traditional women.